Good morning, good morning, good morning. Kathleen the donkey and Jess in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm glad you're here for another day on Kindness Rising and the Mornings in the Lab Network. And this week we've been talking about Danda's way, my grandmother. On Monday, we learned to notice and reach first. On Tuesday, we learned to stay curious instead of believing the stories we invent about people. On Wednesday, we learn to remember because attention says, I see you, but memory says, you mattered after you left. And today, we're going to add another piece to this puzzle. Celebrate the person, not just the accomplishment, the person. Because people don't only need someone who will sit with them in the darkness, they need someone who will dance with them in the light. Welcome to Kindness Rising. I'm glad you're here, Jess and Kathy. Hope you guys are doing great this morning. I'm sure others will be joining us shortly. What's going on in your world? I'm having a cup of coffee. I'm feeling finally rested after Tuesday night's um, amazing, amazing time. But yeah, only a couple hours of sleep yesterday. Sully, good morning, buddy. Ears up today. We're getting deep into some history and politics stuff. I think you'll enjoy this story about my grandmother. Absolutely. Here's the thing, we know what to do when someone's hurting. We send flowers, we bring food, we write them a card, we sit beside them, and those things matter. They matter enormously. But here's something that's I've been thinking about also. What do we do when someone's happy? When they finally accomplish something, when we reach a milestone, or when something finally goes right for someone? Usually we say congratulations, send them a text, send them a quick message, whatever, a card, maybe click their heart, and then we keep scrolling. We've gotten pretty good at helping people carry pain, but we're not always as good at helping them carry their joy. And joy needs company too. My grandmother understood that. She didn't just show up when people were hurting, she showed up when they were celebrating. And when she showed up, she did not come quietly. Good morning. Welcome to Kindness Rising. This is Without a Net. And today's story begins with one of the most respected journalists of the 20th century, a Republican campaign bus, my grandmother, and a 90th birthday present that absolutely no one saw coming. So let's begin. Welcome into Kindness Rising. Subscribe to the channel. Join me every weekday. I'm Matt. I'm here every weekday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern time, to get you up with a little hope, humanity, and heart, more high fives for you, and a little less rage bait. Join people like Jess and Kathy and Sully and Mornings in the Lab, aka Keith Billis. Thursday morning means let's go. It is let's go time. You got your ears up, Sully. I'm glad you do, because we're going to talk about a really fun Danda story. Mom's in the house. Now I can really go forward with Danda story. My mother has been sharing all this information with me about my grandmother and the way it connects to our week's subject about fearless connection. Think about someone, think about the last time someone you care about shared good news. Maybe they got a promotion, finished a difficult project, or got a clean medical report. Maybe they reached a recovery milestone, or performed in a show, ran their first mile, or made it through a hard semester. Yep. Did you congratulate them? Did you celebrate them? Because those aren't necessarily the same thing. Congratulations can be polite, but celebration is personal. Congratulations says, well done. Celebration says, your happiness actually matters to me. It says, I'm not threatened by your joy. I'm not too busy for your joy. I'm not going to make your moment smaller. I'm going to step into it with you. And maybe if the moment calls for it, I'm going to make it even bigger. That was Danda's specialty. Here is some more. But we are going to continue also. We will continue also with our Who in the World. Love today's guy. I'll put it right out there. The guy. Here's your Who in the World every day. 3 clues throughout the episode to figure out who we are talking about today. Our person today was discovered during during World War II, he wasn't discovered. During World War II, he enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps, and after discharge, he came back to entertain the troops. All right, that's our first clue. All right, we'll keep going too. Here we go. We're going to get into it. This is the Danda story for the day without a net. There's a guy that's probably not a household name, particularly in 2026, but back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, this guy was the journalist, one of the journalists of the world that everybody knew, that they understood the work that he was doing. And his name is Joseph C. Harsch, Harsch. There's the man right there, the man, the myth, Joseph Harsch. He was a legendary foreign correspondent. He spent decades watching history happen at close range. Excuse me. He covered governments, presidents, wars, diplomacy, all the forces that were shaping the 20th century. He was in the room when Neville Chamberlain declared war. He was on the island when Pearl Harbor was attacked. He was with MacArthur in Australia on the occasion of the I Shall Return speech, and he even had a direct role in the capture of a Nazi leader. We're talking about a man from Toledo, Ohio, who was presented with the title Commander of the Order of the British Empire, the kind of person who could walk into a room with national leaders and already understand the world they were trying to create. My grandmother met him in a slightly less dignified, but nonetheless important setting, a Republican campaign bus. This was sometime in the 60s. We were trying to figure out the exact year. Danda was not a reporter on the bus. She wasn't a candidate. She wasn't running strategy. She was doing what Danda always did. She was creating energy, starting cheers, leading activities, keeping people laughing, keeping the crowd moving. And Joseph Harsch was on the bus covering it, observing American politics, while Danda was making sure that nobody on the bus got bored or hungry. Somehow it worked, and the world-renowned foreign correspondent and my energetic, card-sending, people-loving Italian grandmother became friends. Story, I'm sure, is starting to get familiar, but this one has a surprise twist at the end. They began corresponding, cards, letters, updates, the little pieces of life that people usually assume no one else will remember. But Danda remembered, and their friendship lasted for decades. In 1993, Joseph Harsch published his memoir. It's called At the Hinge of History, and he sent Danda a copy. Guess what? I have that copy right here. Here's that copy of the book that he sent to my grandmother with the note, "For Sue Birdie, with thanks for years of friendly support, cordially, Joseph C. Harsch, Christmas 1993." So it started in the 60s. So he was still sending her his book in 1993. Think about that. But here's where it gets really, really interesting. A few years later, just a couple years later, an invitation arrived for Danda. Joseph Harsch was approaching his 90th birthday, and they were going to celebrate it aboard a yacht in Rhode Island where he lived. And yep, my grandmother was invited. Now, most of us probably understand the challenge of buying, and of course she was going. I mean, my grandmother was not going, but most of us understand the challenge of buying a gift for someone who seems to have everything. What do you buy a legendary journalist who's turning 90? A pen? That seems obvious. A book? He wrote books. He doesn't need another book. A framed photograph? Maybe. But then Danda began thinking. And when in our family, when Danda begins thinking, there's a slight chance that everyone else should be a little concerned or definitely interested. But here's the thing. One of her daughters, my Aunt Diane, was a professionally trained dancer. She'd studied Middle Eastern dance under some amazing, internationally renowned teachers, and she traveled all over the world doing Middle Eastern dance. And suddenly my grandmother had an exactly an idea of what to give Joseph Harsch for his 90th birthday. She wasn't bringing a gift. She wasn't bringing a card. She brought a belly dancer. Yep, that's true. My Aunt Diane was a classically trained belly dancer. And here's the funny part. My grandmother told no one that she was doing it. She didn't tell Joseph, not the other guests, not his wife. As far as everybody on the yacht was concerned, Danda was arriving with her daughter to celebrate an old friend. But Danda didn't feel that a 90th birthday should feel ordinary, not for Joseph, not for everyone. So at some point during this elegant celebration aboard a yacht in Rhode Island, surrounded by people expecting a respectable birthday gathering for a 90-year-old celebrity, I guess, the surprise began. My Aunt Diane appeared in costume and performed a full belly dance for Joseph Harsch. He loved it. The room came alive. People laughed. They clapped. They were surprised. They were delighted. And for a few minutes, this distinguished man who had spent his career analyzing some of the most serious events in modern history, yep, he wasn't primarily a journalist at that point. He wasn't a resume or a collection of accomplishments. He was Joseph, a man turning 90, surrounded by his friends, laughing at the completely unexpected gift one of them had just brought them. That was Danda. That's what Danda understood. She wasn't celebrating his career. She wasn't celebrating the book. She wasn't even celebrating the number 90. She was just celebrating Joseph, the person. She was saying, I know who you are. I know what will delight you, and I've come all this way to make your joy bigger. That's different from attending a party. That's different from bringing a gift. That's fearless connection, what my grandmother did. Absolutely. And yeah, I'm reading the book now. I never read it before. I actually started reading it because it is just absolutely fascinating. Thanks for the support, for the great stories. I've been enjoying telling my Danda stories. I hope you're not getting bored. Sully, what year was this on the bus event? We were trying to figure it out. What we know for sure is that my grandmother, my grandfather, several people who were delegates to the National Convention. It wasn't to go to the National Convention, but they traveled from the Northeast United States on a bus in the 60s. So we're talking about Barry Goldwater, Richard Nixon. We honestly don't know all the specifics. But they got on a bus with all these people, a big enough situation that Joseph Harsch was covering it, and traveled with a group of Republicans around the country on a bus. So we don't know. It was sometime in the 60s. My mother was trying to figure it out with her memory of when how old she was, and she was old enough to stay behind and take care of her sisters primarily while my grandmother and grandfather were gone. But that was a long answer to I don't know. Sometime in the 60s. we haven't quite figured it out. We weren't able to get. We'll figure it out at some point. Some piece of information will emerge and all that. But I thought you might appreciate that, Sully. Have you ever heard of Harsch? I mean, this book is fascinating. This dude, like I said, he was in the room when Neville Chamberlain declared war. He actually participated in the plot to capture, what was the guy's name? I don't know anything about him. Albert Speer. Albert Speer, a Nazi leader. Pretty crazy. You know what? She did not, as far as I know, Jess, keep journals. Thanks for asking. But we have a lot of members. She kept letters and books and other things. And she died in 2018. So we're on 8 years and we're still going through the stuff. My sister has a bunch of it. My family sold the house that she lived and died in and took all the important stuff out, and it's scattered throughout the family, but we're keeping track of it. Absolutely. All right. So that's the Danda story about Joseph Harsch. Let's get to our second clue, and then we'll move into a little more stuff. All right, second clue. get a clue, Matt. During World War II, our who in the world enlisted in the Army Air Corps, and after discharge, he came back to entertain the troops. Our second clue, he auditioned for a small role in Bye Bye Birdie on Broadway, but he had no dance experience. However, the director saw something in him and offered him the lead on Broadway. So his first breakthrough role was on Broadway in Bye Bye Birdie, playing the lead. All right. That's our second clue. Whoops. What am I doing? This something. I don't have music. Gotta get my music going. You know, it's not quite the fit for what I'm about to do, but I'll go with it anyway. There's a phrase we hear all the time. Let's try it. There's a phrase we hear all the time. Don't make it about you. And usually that's pretty good advice, but I think there's another version we actually should try to hear. Don't make their joy about you. When someone shares good news, don't immediately compare it to your own life. Don't search for the downside or point out what could still go wrong. Don't try to tell a story about yourself that's bigger. Don't shrink their moment because you're uncomfortable taking up the role of the audience. Just celebrate them. But it can actually be harder than it sounds. Someone announces a promotion and our mind goes to the promotion we didn't get. Someone falls in love and we think about how lonely we feel. Someone buys a house and we remember what we can't afford, right? And when someone finishes a marathon, we suddenly feel compelled to explain why we don't enjoy running, which is actually fine because running is suspicious. But perhaps not during their moment. Celebration asks us to step outside of ourselves. It asks us for the next few minutes, your happiness doesn't have to compete with my life. It can simply be glad that you're glad. That's generosity, not financial generosity, emotional generosity. And some people go years without receiving it. All right. Bing Crosby is not a bad guess, Kathy. It's not a bad guess. It's actually a good guess, but it's not right. All right. Sully, I've got a Clinton story for you too, but I'll save it. I have actually spent time with Hillary Clinton, which is one of the coolest experiences of my life. Back in the early 2000s, when she was a senator, she was still the New York State senator. She actually we were invited, she, another gentleman and I were invited to meet with her at her office on Capitol Hill. There were a photograph taken with her on the Capitol Hill steps, and I can talk to you more about that, but that was one of the great experiences of my life too. All right. Wait, that happened today? Wait, that happened today? Yep. All right, we're changing it up a little bit, change the vibe a little bit. Mom, if you're still out there, thought about you when this one hit my screen. July 23rd, 1904, a year before Joseph Harsch was born. And according to several competing accounts, there was the introduction of a new edible pastry that has changed the world. At the St. Louis World's Fair, talking about an edible pastry cone, because several people were credited with inventing the ice cream cone. And we can't say with certainty that one person invented it on this exact date. What we do know is that edible cones filled with ice cream became enormously popular at the 1904 World's Fair. And that fair helped turn the ice cream cone into an American favorite. Which means one of the most joyful foods ever created became famous because someone realized the container should also be a dessert. That's innovation. No spoon, no dish, no cleanup, just ice cream sitting inside of a little cookie. Humanity has had worse ideas for sure, and it fits today because joy doesn't always have to be serious. Sometimes it's a life-changing accomplishment. Sometimes it's a surprise performance aboard a yacht, and sometimes it's realizing you can eat the bowl. Hey, all right, ice cream cones for everyone. Today's Wait That happened approximately July 23rd, 1904, the St. Louis Fair, where the ice cream cone was introduced. All right. Whoops. Yeah, all right. I'm here. Ice cream is my language. It is, Mom. Absolutely. No question. Ice cream is my language. Before I forget and we get to our final clue, I want to do our spotlight because I don't want to forget. We always here on Kindness Rising every single day. Wake up with a little bit of hope, humanity, and heart, and we promote the good work being done by good people out there. And today's Kindness Spotlight is an organization called the Confetti Foundation. All right, there we go. Confetti Foundation. Here they are. Their founder, Stephanie Fraser Grimm, once spent her own 13th birthday in the hospital. Years later, she learned about a child preparing to celebrate a birthday in the NICU without decorations, without a party, without the usual signs that this day was special. Stephanie created the Confetti Foundation. The organization sends themed birthday boxes to children spending their birthdays in hospitals, oncology clinics, and in hospice care. Decorations, activities, party supplies, a celebration delivered directly to the room. Now, the box can't take away the illness, but it can keep the illness from taking away the birthday. For at least a little while, the patient becomes the guest of honor. The hospital room becomes a party room, and the family gets to celebrate something wonderfully right in the middle of something incredibly hard. That's what it means to celebrate the person, not waiting for the perfect circumstances, but making their joy bigger right where they are. That is the Confetti Foundation. All right. Let's get to that last clue. How are we feeling about a clue? Anybody? So Kathy guessed Bing Crosby, which I thought was a good guess. All right. Let's see what we've got cooking here. First clue we remember is he was in the Army Air Corps discharge after he came back to entertain the troops. He auditioned for a role in Bye Bye Birdie, a small role in Bye Bye Birdie, but he was given the lead even though he couldn't dance. And our last clue, this should seal the deal and clinch it for everybody. He later became famous for playing a television comedy writer and a cheerful chimney sweep named Bert. Steppin' time, steppin' time. All right, there it is. I sang a little song for you. I'm sure that one should clinch it. Not Bob Hope. Not Bob Hope. Not Jimmy Stewart. You're kind of in the wheelhouse. This dude's still alive. All right. Let's get to today's compass while we wait for the answer to our Who in the World. Today's Kindness Compass as we move from thought to action every day here on Kindness Rising. Find one person you can celebrate. Not someday, today. Maybe somebody in your family has been quietly doing something difficult, or a friend recently shared good news, and you responded with nothing more than a thumbs up. Maybe a coworker solved a problem everyone else had stopped noticing, or maybe someone you love has made progress that won't win an award, but deserves to be seen. Call them, write them, bring them something. Tell someone else what they accomplished and ask them to tell you more about their story. And when they do, don't rush them. Just sit back and enjoy it. You don't have to rent a yacht. You don't have to hire entertainment. You probably shouldn't arrive at every birthday party with an unannounced belly dancer. Probably. But do something that says, I didn't just notice what happened. I noticed you. Because celebrating the person doesn't require spectacle. It requires attention. The spectacle was simply Danda's personal preference. That's today's compass. How'd we do? Did anybody get it? There he is. There it is. Who came in first? He was with Mary Tyler Moore. I can't remember his name. Roseanne Roof is correct. And Kathleen came in with DVD. I call him DVD. DVD. I love Dick Van Dyke. I always have liked his style, his humor. I have. Uh, I used to obsessively watch Nick at Night when they were playing the old reruns, so I've probably seen every episode of his show from the '60s. I love just his style today at almost 100. Yeah, absolutely. Just a genuine person, I think. It's fascinating. Chitty chitty bang bang. Nice call, Sully. I forgot about that. Yes, huge. Yes, he is still alive. I think he's nearing his 100th or has celebrated his 100th. Not only is he still alive, but I think he's still pretty active. I think he and Danda are cut from the same cloth. Absolutely. Cut from the same cloth, for sure. Yes, and he had no formal dancing training. None. What he did in Mary Poppins, what he did on Bye Bye Birdie, he just learned. Apparently, I was reading a little bit about him yesterday, and he tells that story. He never danced a step in his life, and apparently, right after he finished his song audition in his style, right after he finished the song audition for a smaller role, he did a little improvised. That's the word I'm looking for. Improvised, like soft shoe dance, and the director was like, "That's our guy." Start of his career, pretty amazing. Oh, he drank? I didn't even know that. Sully says he was an admitted alcoholic. That didn't come up in the research I was doing, but absolutely. I can see it. I can see how that could happen, for sure. All right, it's been a great week rolling through all of this with all of you. 4 stories so far, and they just keep coming. This has sparked something in our family too, outside of here. My mother and I talking about stories about Danda, small ones, big ones, the famous people that she connected with, I'm gonna say small people, the regular people that she connected with. I haven't decided what I'm going to do tomorrow, but there's a great story about receiving a box of chocolates in the mail and what she did in response to that, not to the person who gave her the chocolate, which was kind of an interesting story. Maybe I'll throw that one in tomorrow. But I don't have enough time for it today. I appreciate everyone who's come out today and celebrated us, celebrated more Kindness Rising, celebrating this community. I'm planning on it for tomorrow, Jess. I actually thought about that. I'm going to put together a little thing so you can see pictures of Danda. I have pictures. I just have to get my act together to do it. I won't do a huge thing, and this is not about my grandmother, but I think people want to see her. I actually did show photographs of her in my very first episode. If you want to go back to YouTube, and if you're that interested, go back to day 1. July 7th, 2025, and I did a whole Who Am I, and my grandmother was included in that. All right. Well, we didn't get to our Without a Net, but guess what? That's okay. That's okay. We'll move on. We'll do it again some other time. But it was more important for me to talk about my grandmother. So let's wrap it up here as we do, pulling the thread, or weaving the thread, not pulling. I keep saying pulling the thread. I got to start getting used to saying weaving the thread. Weaving Fred. Who's Fred? Weaving the thread. People need us when they're hurting. Keep showing up then. Sit with them. Listen. Carry what you can, but don't wait for pain to become a dependable person. Show up for the joy, too. When somebody you care about has a reason to celebrate, don't stand at the edge of their happiness. Step inside it. Clap loudly. Ask questions, tell them you're proud, help them remember the big moment by making their joy bigger. Absolutely. Celebrate that achievement, but more importantly, celebrate the person who achieved it, because a milestone eventually becomes a memory and a promotion becomes another job. The birthday passes, the candles go off, but people remember who is genuinely happy for them. They remember who made the call, who wrote the note, and who raised the glass. This week, Danda has shown us a way to live. Notice, reach first, stay curious, remember, and celebrate the person. I'll be back tomorrow with more Danda stories, more without a net, more kindness rising. So whatever and wherever you are today, find someone whose joy deserves company, then go give it some. Absolutely. Come on back tomorrow morning for a little bit more joy and kindness as we get up and get after it here on Kindness Rising. Until then, stay uncommon and stay kind.